Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to break down big ideas into, useful insights for you.
That's the plan.
And today we're jumping into a really influential one. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Came out way back in 1937.
Right, a classic. And we're focusing on some key excerpts, the real core stuff that's made such a difference for people.
Yeah, exactly. The ideas that really stick.
And it's important, I think, to say up front, this isn't just about money. I mean, that's in there, sure.
Right.
But it's broader. It's really a philosophy for achieving things, whatever your goals are.
So what's our mission today then?
Basically, to pull out the most powerful bits for you, a kind of shortcut to understanding these principles.
We'll look at some stories, maybe some famous examples.
Definitely. And connect it back to how you can actually use these ideas in your own life, your own journey.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this. First, big concept. Burning desire. Sounds intense.
It is. And Hill makes it super clear this isn't just like wishing for something.
Not a maybe someday kind of thing.
No. It's an obsession, a consuming driving force that makes you act. It has to be definite.
How does he show that? What's the story he uses?
He kicks things off with Edwin C. Barnes. This guy had this incredibly powerful, burning desire
To do what?
to become a business associate of Thomas Edison, not just work for him.
Okay, with him. A partner. That's a big difference.
Huge, and shows the level of his ambition.
So how'd he go about it? Just send a resume?
No, he was broke. He traveled by blind baggage. He basically snuck onto a freight train, didn't even have money for a ticket to get to Orange, New Jersey.
Wow. Okay, that's commitment.
Yeah.
Staking everything on it.
Totally. He apparently showed up looking like, well, Edison said, an ordinary tramp.
Not exactly dressed for success.
Not at all. But Edison saw something else.
What was that?
Years later, Edison recalled that Barnes's face just radiated determination, absolute resolve.
So Edison saw past the appearance.
He did. He apparently said something like, when someone wants something that badly, willing to risk it all, they're sure to win. He saw that fire.
Okay, so Barnes arrives, looking rough but determined. Did he get the partnership right away?
Oh, definitely not. He started at the bottom. Really menial tasks.
But he stuck with it.
He did. Because he knew, even though small steps were moving him closer, he famously burned his bridges.
Meaning no turning back.
Exactly. No retreat. No plan B. That desire became his complete focus, his obsession.
And eventually.
Eventually, years later, he got there. He became Edison's business partner. It's Hill's prime example of thoughts becoming things through sheer force of will and desire.
That's a powerful illustration.
Yeah.
So the takeaway for us is crystal clear goal, non-negotiable commitment.
Right. Even if it seems illogical sometimes.
Life throws curveballs. It's not always a straight lineup, is it?
What about failure? Setbacks?
Oh, absolutely. The book is very clear. Temporary defeat is part of the deal. It's almost expected.
A test, maybe? Yeah, maybe a test of that desire. Hill tells the story of R.U. Darby and the gold mine.
I think I know this one. They gave up too soon.
Painfully soon. Darby and his uncle invested everything, hit a vein, then nothing. Or what they thought was nothing. Junk ore.
So they quit.
They quit, sold all the machinery for just a few $100 to a junk man.
And the punchline is,
The junk man got smart. He hired an expert.
uh-oh.
Yeah. Turns out the gold vein Darby had given up on, it was just 3 feet further down.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
3 feet from a fortune. That's got to sting.
Can you imagine? It's a brutal lesson in quitting too early.
But did Darby learn from it? Did it change him?
Massively. It became his defining lesson. He later went into life insurance sales.
Okay. How did the gold mine story help there?
He used it as fuel. He literally told himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no when I ask them to buy insurance.
Wow. He turned that failure into persistence.
Exactly. Became incredibly successful. One of the top sellers, selling over $1 million a year back then. His stickability came directly from that painful quitability lesson.
That's an amazing turnaround. So the desire needs to be strong enough to push past those 3 feet from gold moments. Almost tangible.
Yeah, tangible is a good word. Like the story of Dr. Frank Gonzalez.
The preacher who wanted to build a college.
That's the one. He needed $1 million. Which was, an insane amount of money back then, especially for a preacher.
So he had the desire. For how long?
For 2 years, he just thought about it, wished for it. Then something shifted.
What happened?
He made a definite decision. He decided he would get the money within 1 week.
Wow. Just like that. Did he know how?
Nope. He wasn't worried about the how, just the absolute certainty of the what and when. The decision itself was the key.
They did some serious conviction. What did he do next?
He immediately announced a sermon for the next morning, called it What I Would Do If I Had $1 Million.
Bold move.
Very. And because he'd been turning this over in his mind for 2 years, and now had this definite decision backing it, he delivered it with incredible power.
And someone heard it.
Someone very important, Philip D. Armour, the industrialist. He was in the audience. He was so moved, so convinced by Gonzalez's vision and certainty, he met him right after and basically said, "Here's your $1 million."
Just like that. Based on a sermon.
Based on the power of that thought impulse, backed by years of desire and now, crucially, a definite decision. It manifested incredibly fast. It shows the power isn't just wishing, it's deciding.
Okay, that really underscores the intensity needed. But desire alone isn't the whole picture, right? How does it actually happen?
Yeah.
The book talks about the mind being a kind of workshop.
Exactly. The Hill calls it the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man, and the key tool in that workshop, imagination.
Right, and he splits imagination into 2 types.
Synthetic imagination and creative imagination.
Okay, break this down.
Synthetic is basically working with what you already know. Rearranging existing concepts, ideas, facts into new combinations, like building with existing Lego bricks.
Makes sense. Most planning probably uses that. What about creative imagination?
That's the leap. That's accessing insights, knowledge you didn't get through your normal senses. Think hunches, intuition, flashes of inspiration, the sixth sense stuff.
Can you give an example of how those work together?
Edison again. The light bulb quest. He supposedly tried 10,000 times.
The famous failures.
Which weren't failures, right? They were experiments. He was using his synthetic imagination relentlessly, combining known elements, trying different materials, different designs.
Just grinding it out.
Exactly. But the book implies that the final breakthrough, the actual solution, came after all that effort, when he perhaps taps into that creative faculty, that intuitive jump.
So you need both, the hard work and the openness to insight.
Precisely. You use synthetic to build and test, but sometimes you need creative to make the real leap. You gotta push the known limits until the unknown sort of offers an answer.
It's not just thinking harder, it's thinking differently maybe, being open.
Exactly right, and that openness, that belief, ties into the next big ideas, faith and autosuggestion.
Okay. Faith. How does Hill define that? Is it religious faith?
Not necessarily in a religious sense, though it can be. He calls it the eternal elixir that gives life and power to thought. It's a state of mind.
A state of mind you can't create.
Yes, that's the kicker. He says it can be induced by autosuggestion. Basically, telling yourself something repeatedly with feeling until your subconscious mind accepts it as truth, even if it doesn't feel true at first.
So you can convince yourself into believing something.
That's the principle. Believing what you repeat until you accept it. Hill shares a really powerful personal story here.
Well, his son.
Yes. His son was born without normal hearing. Doctors basically said there was no hope for him to hear or speak properly.
That must have been devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. But Hill refused to accept it. He planted this burning desire, this faith, that his son would hear and speak.
How did he apply autosuggestion?
He consistently, persistently projected that belief. He essentially told himself and instilled in his son the belief that he could hear. He mixed intense desire with unwavering faith.
And what happened?
The son came to believe it too, and eventually technology caught up. A hearing device was developed that helped him hear perfectly.
Wow.
And the son turned that supposed handicap into an asset, became a successful engineer, helped thousands with hearing issues. Hill saw it as direct proof of faith shaping reality.
That's incredibly moving. Any other examples of this kind of mind over matter belief?
There's another one about a business associate who was critically ill. Doctors gave him almost no chance. But right before surgery, the guy whispered to Hill, "Don't worry, Chief, I'll be out of here in a few days." Total confidence.
Despite the odds.
Completely. And his doctor later confirmed it. Nothing but his own desire to live saved him. He refused to accept the possibility of death.
So the mind's belief system, especially fueled by emotion, is incredibly powerful.
That's a central point. Hill states, thoughts which are mixed with any of the feelings of emotions constitute a magnetic force. Emotion electrifies thought.
And you have to choose positive emotions.
Right. Because positive and negative can't dominate at the same time. You have to actively cultivate the positive faith, love, hope, and starve the negative. And habit helps lock that in.
Okay, so we've got the inner game down. Desire, imagination, faith. How do we translate that into real-world action? The book talks about knowledge, but with a twist.
A very important twist. He says, flat out, knowledge is only potential power.
Only potential power. What makes it actual power?
Organizing it, putting it into definite plans of action aimed at a specific goal. It's not what you know, it's how you use what you know.
And the Henry Ford example comes up again here, right? The guy with little schooling.
Exactly. Ford was famously called an ignorant pacifist during a libel trial. They tried to trip him up with general knowledge questions.
To prove he was uneducated.
Right. But Ford's response was brilliant. He basically said, why should I clutter my mind with that stuff? I have a row of buttons on my desk. I can push one and summon men who can answer any question I need.
Huh. So he didn't need to know everything.
He just needed to know where to get the knowledge and how to organize those experts to achieve his goals. That, Hill argues, is true education organized, applied knowledge.
That completely reframes education. It's about resourcefulness, networking.
Precisely. Which leads perfectly into the mastermind principle.
Okay, what's the definition of a mastermind?
Hill defines it as coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose.
So teamwork, basically, but maybe deeper.
Deeper, yeah. It's about synergistic alliance. Two minds working in harmony create more than the sum of their parts. He says nearly every great fortune or achievement relied on this.
You got a big example.
The formation of U.S. Steel is a classic one he uses. Charles Schwab, who worked for Andrew Carnegie.
Carnegie's right-hand man.
Exactly. Schwab had this huge idea for consolidating the steel industry. He presented it to J.P. Morgan and other major bankers over dinner.
High-stakes meeting.
Totally. And Schwab apparently gave this incredibly passionate, detailed 90-minute presentation, laid out the whole vision, mass production, cost cuts, market expansion.
And Morgan bought it.
Hook, line, and sinker. Schwab's idea, combined with his intense faith and ability to articulate it within that powerful group, that mastermind alliance, convinced Morgan. That led directly to U.S. Steel. Huge-scale application of these ideas.
It shows the power of a well-presented, faith-backed idea within the right group. Now, the book also gets really practical about, like, getting a job or selling your services, something about a new way.
Yeah, I was quite forward-thinking. He predicted the future relationship between employers and employees wouldn't be adversarial, but a partnership.
A partnership involving who?
Employer, employee, and the public they serve. He talked about the go-getter being replaced by the go-giver.
Go-giver. What's the focus there?
Quality, quantity, and spirit of service. The QQS formula. Giving value first.
And how did someone actually apply that QQS idea? There's a story about that, isn't there?
Yes, a really clever one. A mother, during the Depression, wanted to help her college grad son find work. He was struggling.
So she didn't just polish his resume.
Oh, way beyond that. She created what Hill calls a personal service sales plan. First, she researched potential employers like crazy, learned their businesses, their challenges.
Okay, deep research. Then what?
Then she compiled this amazing, almost 50-page plan book. It detailed her son's qualifications, sure, but crucially, it laid out exactly how he would fill the specific role and offered valuable suggestions for improving the employer's business.
Wow, she basically did free consulting work for them in the application.
Pretty much. She presented her son not just as a job seeker, but as a solution provider, demonstrating value up front.
And the result? Did it work?
First interview. He got the job, named his own salary, and started as a junior executive, not entry level. Hill estimates that approach saved him maybe 10 years of climbing the ladder. It was about proactively giving value, not just asking for a chance.
That's a radically different approach. What plan book could you create for your next goal? Okay, so if these principles work, why isn't everyone successful? What holds people back?
Ah, the big question. Hill dedicates a lot of time to what he calls the 6 ghosts of fear.
Ghosts? Sounds spooky. What are they?
They're these deep-seated, often subconscious fears that paralyze us. The big 6 are fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, and fear of death.
Those cover a lot of ground, and he links them to something specific.
Yes, critically, he links them to indecision. He says indecision is the seedling of fear.
Indecision leads to fear. How?
It starts small. Indecision grows into doubt. Then doubt and indecision blend together and crystallize into actual fear.
Yeah.
And because it happens subtly, we often don't even notice these ghosts taking hold.
Can you give examples of how these fears manifest? Like, fear of poverty isn't just being scared of being homeless, right?
No, it's often much subtler. It's that reluctance to invest in yourself, that constant worry about money, even when you have enough. Seeing the risk before the opportunity, the hole in the donut, as he puts it.
And fear of criticism. That sounds common.
Hugely common.
Yeah.
How many great ideas die unspoken because someone's afraid of what others might think or say? It stops people pursuing education, leaving bad situations, all because of potential judgment.
And ill health. Can fear actually make you sick?
Hill strongly suggests it can. Worry, fear, disappointment, these negative emotions can manifest physically. He even talks about hypochondria, where the fear creates the symptoms.
Okay, these fears sound really pervasive. What's the antidote? How do you fight these ghosts?
The core antidote, echoing back to earlier points, is prompt and firm decision.
Decision again. Just deciding not to be afraid. That sounds simplistic.
It sounds simplistic, but he means it in a profound way. It's about choosing your mental state. He uses a really extreme example.
That's one.
He interviewed a man literally hours away from being electrocuted, awaiting execution.
Wow. How was the man? Terrified.
Surprisingly, no. He was remarkably calm, the calmest person in the room, apparently.
Why?
He told Hill, essentially, once I knew for certain I was going to die and I decided to accept it in good spirit, I felt fine. He made a definite decision about his fate, and it brought peace. He even ate a hearty last meal.
That's extreme. But it makes the point powerfully.
Yeah.
Deciding removes the anxiety of the unknown, even if the known is terrible.
Exactly. So applied to the fears. By deciding to accept the possibility of death without fear, to manage without worrying obsessively about wealth, to ignore petty criticism, to see old age as wisdom, to dismiss phantom symptoms, you break the habit of worry.
You take control, like Ford making quick decisions.
Precisely. Ford controlled his mind, his fears didn't control him. Making definite decisions starves the fears born of indecision and doubt. You choose your dominant thoughts.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows that achieving riches in any sense isn't about luck.
Not at all. It's a system, a deliberate process starting entirely in your mind.
It requires that intense desire, that active imagination.
Unshakable faith built through auto-suggestion, using knowledge effectively through plans and alliances.
Sticking with it through setbacks,
Yeah.
and, crucially, mastering those internal fears through decision.
It's a complete framework for achievement, really.
So, thinking about all this, what really stands out to you from these powerful ideas we've discussed? How might you use even one of these insights to tackle a goal you have right now?
Hill believed the world is always full of opportunity, maybe even more so after big changes. Opportunities dreamers of the past never knew. The question is, how will you leverage these principles? How will you turn your definite desire into reality? The power and the first step, that definite decision, is entirely up to you.